always been my thought that Clemson's done a poor job in recruiting defensive linemen. They don't typically do a nice job in that area. They need to step it up. Let's improve the defensive line play. Yes, just a dearth of talent, not able to get anybody to play that defensive line position. So, of course, I'm just kidding, and I'm looking at 3 of the top defensive tackles, 1, 2, and 3 in the nation on the board, starting with Travis Shaw out of North Carolina.
Yeah, I think this is the guy that's at the top of the board for the Tigers. Like a lot of guys 2 months ago, I had a different feeling about him. I would have said he was pretty much a lock to come to Clemson, but I'm not sure about that anymore. Georgia has really gained ground in this one, that they are making a strong push for Shaw. Landon Jalon Walker over Clemson helps them in this battle too, because those 2 guys are tight, and they talked about playing together at college. But yeah, this is going to be one of those that if Georgia can come and beat out Clemson for Shaw like they did with Walker, that this one's going to sting some if Clemson loses out on Shaw, because it was thought that they were way out in the lead for him, and for a long while too.
Jason, it's easy to see that this Clemson-Georgia game is going to mean a whole lot on the field and toward conference college football playoff appearance. But at the same time, when it comes to recruiting, may mean something there as well. And you never know what's running through an individual's mind. There's certain players that, regardless of what happens on the field, they are committed to a school, they are committed to a football program, but others may be swayed by the outcome of that matchup on September 4th.
It's a possibility. I mean, like you just said, you never know what factors in with some of these kids. I remember how I was when I was 18 years old, man. It didn't take much to sway my opinion one way or the other. It could be one thing one day, and I'd change it totally the next. So, I mean, yeah, it's definitely possible that the outcome of that game could play some kind of role in the minds of some of these kids and where they end up going to school. So it's definitely a big game.
So also in that defensive tackle slot, you've got the #1 rated player in the country, #1 in Tennessee, top 2 player in the country, Walter Nolan. What are the prospects that he is going to wear purple and orange?
I kind of follow along the same path as I am with Julian Armel. I think Clemson's kind of out of this one now, but he definitely was considered one of the top targets, at least at one time. I don't know if he still is or not, but I'm sure they're still recruiting him. But I just think they're out of this one. I think their top guy's Shaw, and I think they're all in on him.
Okay. Very good. We got Jason Priester on the line from allclemson.com on SI's platform for Clemson Athletics. Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy got him rated as a top 3 defensive tackle, and he comes out of Florida.
This is a guy that isn't getting a lot of talk, when it comes to Clemson. I think there is some definite mutual interest there. I wouldn't be surprised if Clemson misses on Shaw if they don't, put the full court press on him, if he's still available by the time Shaw commits, because I think Shaw's recruitment is going to play out all the way till signing day. Probably it's going to be one of those that's a long one. And if they're only going to take one defensive tackle this cycle, it might be Shaw or have to settle for somebody much lower on the board. They might miss out on all these big names.
Jason Priester on the line, doing some big work for us, talking Clemson football and getting us set to report on these targets, these visitation weekends that are coming up in June, and of course, commitments that are sure to follow at some point. Got a Nia White, weak side defensive end, one of the top 2 players at his position, coming out of Philadelphia as a top 40 player in the country.
Yeah, I think this one's still wide open. I think Alabama, Florida, Clemson, Ohio State, Georgia. I think all those guys still have a shot at him. I think he's going into June, with a very open mind. I think he wants to take a bunch of visits, and then he'll reassess and see where things stand at that point. But I think this one's wide open right now. I wouldn't even venture to guess a favorite at this time. But I think all those schools have a very realistic shot at landing him.
Got Jihad Campbell out of IMG Academy, out of the state of Florida, of course, is a top 20 player in the state. He also plays weak side defensive end as a top 10 player at that position.
Yeah, kind of the same thing with White. I think his is still wide open too. I think there's a bunch of schools got a shot at him. I think Clemson's definitely one of the favorites here. You know, Florida, Texas A&M, Georgia. I think Oklahoma too. Bunch of schools in after him. This is a very talented guy. You know, and IMG they develop those football players down there. There's a reason those kids transfer into that program. He's a good football player. Whoever lands him is gonna get a good one. But I think Clemson right now has got as good a shot as anybody.
How about with another weak side defensive end, DJ Wesselak?
He's got to be on campus in June, the first week in June sometime. I think that's another guy that I think is gonna. I just think that it's still up in the air right now. I think it's still up in the air for a lot of these guys. You know, they just haven't been able to visit anywhere in so long. I think once we get past the month of June and we see all these guys have taken all these visits, I think we're going to start seeing things really change. We're going to change our mind on a lot of things. From where I stand today, I'm probably going to stand in a whole different position a month from now. But Wesselak's another guy I think's wide open. I think he's got a long list of schools he wants to check out, and he'll start narrowing that down after he takes some visits.
No, Jason, we're going to pin you down on these predictions. We need you to be 100% right.
Yeah, I quit doing that after Jalon Walker burned me.